SBCs, guys, Saturday night or Sunday morning if you were in the RAC arena, whatever it's called. Dricus Du Plessis defeated Israel Adesanya to defend his UFC middleweight title. DDP submitted the last style bender via knockdown and eventual RNC. That's a rear naked RNC. That's a rear naked choke. It was in round 4 of the title fight. Let's hear your reaction, boys. I'm curious if you like this title fight as much as I did. We go to Matt Wells down in the Big D, man. What was your reaction of this fight as the whole fight was unfolding and the end?
I mean, it was an enjoyable fight. You had to be happy with I guess, how it unfolded. It was a competitive title fight, and I think that's what everybody tunes in for at the end of the day for a big pay per view, right? You want to see a real championship caliber fight, and I think that's what we got. I also think a lot of people tuned in to see what was Izzy going to look like after his layoff. I mean, if you can really even call it a layoff, it was a lengthy layoff for him because his activity is always so high. And he's been in title fight after title fight after title fight, all the way back since 2020, 2019. Every single fight's been a title fight for him, right?
Yeah.
It was an incredible performance from him up until it wasn't, right? I mean, I think he was very sharp offensively. I think he was sharp defensively until DDP started landing a couple of those big looping hooks and really kind of rocked him. I think there was a couple of punches in there that he poker faced really well. But as we can kind of see, like as the fight wore on, he kind of just slowed down a little bit. He stopped countering as much, and that's when DDP really took advantage and just wrestled him to the ground and eventually sunk in that RNC. But I think it was an enjoyable fight to watch, and whether you were on Izzy's side or DDP's side, I mean it was a fun fight, and the respect shown at the end kind of proved that hey, this was a good competition. All the bad blood that we saw beforehand was really left in the weeks prior for the most part, right? But I think it all came down to just a solid, pure competition between two high-level middleweights, and I think you got to be happy with the product that we got.
Let's hear some more reactions. Danny Sogora, ahora tú.
I liked it. I thought it was a great title fight. It was fun. It was high level, competitive, as Matt Wells said. But I want to add something. I think Matt Wells pretty much summed it up perfectly here. Pretty much how I feel about the fight. But I also want to add the aspect outside of it. I was really concerned, and we talked about in the last SBC episode how, like, where there are concerns about how ugly the buildup could get, and there was certainly some of this type of talk around it. We saw some stuff in media day, a little bit of the presser, but it didn't get to a territory where things were gonna get like really bad or really ugly. I think all in all, the buildup was well, and then the aftermath also, as Matt mentioned, it was quite nice seeing them kind of bury the hatchet and both kind of celebrate each other and the fact that they are very different, but they are from Africa, and they represent the continent. So all in all, great for the middleweight division. I am curious to see where Adesanya goes next, and so does Du Plessis. I'm guessing we'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, I loved it. Great title fight.
Mm-hmm. And goes, you and I did the watch along, and I mean, this fight went back and forth. It had everything, including a finish, so no controversy. We're not bitching about judges, although we might when we bring up the Tai Tuivasa Jairzinho Rosenstruck fight. But give the SBC fans your take, your reaction to this historical fight.
Well, gentlemen, as you can see by my background, the gloves are off. I kind of disagree with you guys. Listen, I thought this fight was very entertaining. Okay, however, I don't think we were watching high level MMA, and that was
Oh,
a little depressing for me because don't snicker, George, because you're gonna be the first one that's gonna get served if you do that. I'm gonna tell you this right now. DDP finds a way to find an ugly fight. Can't take that away from him, right? He gets the job done. But I don't think anybody was sitting here saying this dude's gonna rule the division or anything like that, right? I mean, it probably wasn't the greatest performance. He got the job done. Okay. The expression of you know, that guy's a dog. That kind of describes him, right? That's the way he fights. If you look at other animals, right? A tiger, the way they stalk their prey, that's like an Islam Makhachev or a John Jones. That's not DDP. DDP is like a honey badger. Still gets the job done, so you have to give him his credit. But it's going to catch up to him eventually. I think you guys have to agree with that. Eventually, this is going to catch up with him. Israel Adesanya, I was actually enjoying. Danny was talking about the lead up to this, and I thought it was going to get ugly. I actually enjoyed that Izzy kind of took his time a little bit. He was a little bit more calm, and I think that transferred into the cage. He used the distance well. I like that he put a jab in his face every time DDP came forward, but he didn't really have that plan B, guys. And when things started to go off the rails, he didn't look too good, man. I mean, defensively, he was taking some shots. I know he likes to get out of the way, and that's one of the advantages of being a long, lanky fighter. But you got to move that head because move out of the way, you're going to dodge that first punch, maybe even that second one, but that third one's going to land. Eventually, a guy like DDP is going to get there, and he just wasn't making that adjustment. And when the fight hit the ground, it just wasn't a good look for a guy that we constantly talk about being possibly one of the greatest to ever do it. You're going to have to compare him to a guy like Anderson Silva. When you do that, we have to nitpick these things. So again, very entertaining fight, but I don't know that we were watching high level MMA either.
Do one of you want to talk to the kid, or should I? Or because
Yeah,
I loved it. Go ahead, Matt Wells.
Yeah, I'll chime in a little bit. I think one of the things that we kind of underappreciate from DDP is that he looks a little awkward. He takes himself off of balance. When he starts swinging these big hooks, and he looks a little awkward a lot of the times. But I think one of the things, like I went back and rewatched it, he times that stuff very well, and defensively, he's also really good defensively. Like he kept that guard up really high and tight while Izzy was coming forward. And that's not Izzy's best game. Izzy doesn't come forward at his best. He's always his best countering, right? So he was timing really well his own opportunities to strike and attack Izzy and really just bum rush him like he did at the end there, swinging those big old left hands. It was very well timed stuff when Izzy was off balance and Izzy wasn't really ready to have his feet set. And even though DDP, like I said, he takes himself off of balance, I think he calculates the stuff really well, as awkward as it looks. So I think we got to, kind of just look at DDP a little bit closer and just kind of notice that he does a lot of stuff well, even though it doesn't look as technically sound as I guess we would like to see.
I can't take it. I can't take it away
here.
from him.
Goes, the style might not be pretty, but it's effective. It's effective, right? I've been in gyms. I remember, I'm not going to mention which gym specifically or which fighter. I mean, I don't even know the name of the fighter, but I was waiting around for an interview, and I remember a coach talking to like a younger fighter and saying, man, your style points are like 10, but your actual fighting is not. And then he was sparring some guy that didn't know as much as him and was kind of throwing wild punches, but he was connecting more. And the guy that was kind of moving around and looking good was barely connecting and not doing good. So I would say the same thing about Dricus Du Plessis. His style points are probably on the floor. No disrespect, but his fighting points are way up there. They work, man. He beat Whitaker and Adesanya. Finished both of them. You have to be skilled to do that. How many middleweights today can say they've finished both Whitaker and Adesanya, the two greatest middleweights in recent times? Not many, man.
Well, here's the thing. Goes and we talked about this yesterday, and I understood some of his points, and Kamikaze's B-roll here kind of supported it because DDP looks awful, especially when he's doing his third and fourth punch and he's reaching, right? But I guess it was his comment of saying not high level MMA. What I saw was two guys that fought through adversity. DDP was hurt at one point. I thought he was going to get finished.
Yeah.
He came back. I saw DDP huffing and puffing, but still in round 4 was strong. I saw Israel in round 1, with some decent takedown defense, the ability to get up. And then these guys they had pinpoint kicks because who was it? I think Matt said DDP's got a really nice high guard, right? But what did Izzy do? He started kicking him to the body. He was accurate, and he was slapping him. He was slapping him with the hands. So I saw some beautiful techniques out there, and I was on the edge of my seat. The rivalry was out the window, and I could see both guys. I knew they were going to get along at the end. I didn't think they were going to be best buds, but I knew they were going to get along because you could just see it in their eyes. Like both Izzy was looking at DDP, and DDP was going, "Oh man, that's a bad motherfucker." I gotta respect. And I saw that after like 3 to 5 minutes. Like everything else was out the window. I knew they would shake hands. It was a thing of beauty. That's why I can't believe he keeps saying it wasn't high level MMA. I think what he's saying is it did get sloppy at times, but I thought I saw high
sloppy.
level.
I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying. All I'm trying to say is it did get very sloppy. I thought DDP looked very, very tired. I actually thought Israel Adesanya looked pretty good cardio-wise. But when that fight hit the floor, man, I mean, let's be honest. Like, we're talking creme de la creme, right, of the division. That choke wasn't even under the chin. And granted, yeah, that hurts. It does. It applies a lot of pressure. But that's what we talk about. Some of the greats, the GSPs, the Anderson Silvas, the John Jones of the world, Demetrius Johnson, they seem to rough it. They rough through those moments. They go through them, and it just didn't seem like it to me, guys. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you this. Point to me a single DDP fight in the UFC where he doesn't look like he wanted to just say, "Hey, time out. Let me catch a breath real quick." He looks like that
Right.
in
He could
every
use the
fight at
20.
some point. It's
Yeah,
actually
he could
kind of
use a
amazing.
20, man, or something, because he looks like he's huffing and puffing, and he expended a lot of energy in round one. But it's a testament to how he just digs deep, man. I don't know how he does it, honestly.
Crazy. I think his size, man. His size is one thing that's underrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we hear all the time, like you see this guy in person, especially when he's not in a fight week. It's a very large human being, right? And he cuts down to 185. And then I get like, man, that power must be something crazy because the way Izzy just started turning away from those shots and not trying to counter anymore, that power's got to be something different, man.
Let's have some fun. Chat room, you guys can participate as well. Let's hear your comments. Did you like the fight? Do you agree with us three? Or do you see Goz's point? Maybe it wasn't as high level as what we're thinking. Let us know. Some of these good comments and questions will get uh, put on here onto the show. But we got to talk about a few other things. What's next for both guys? Danny, tell us about DDP. I mean, is it a slam dunk, Sean Strickland, or can the winner of Hamzat Shemaev and Robert Whitaker do something to, stir the pot, to steal the shine away? Because they fight. Let's see, it's in October. It's at the end of October at UFC 308.
It should have been Whitaker. I'm saying is Whitaker. A lot of the media agrees with me. The fans agree with me. Even Dricus Du Plessis saying Robert Whitaker is getting the short end of the stick there because we do know that Dana White said that Sean Strickland is likely going to be next. Now we know that sometimes UFC brass says one thing and then another thing is done, but just the way
Sometimes,
things are
all the
looking right
time.
now, the fact that Whitaker is booked to fight Hamza Shimaev, the fact that last month was a title eliminator bout and now it's not labeled that, it all points that yes, Sean Strickland is the next challenger. And look, I don't hate it if there weren't any other contenders out there, but at this point in time, Robert Whitaker has done exactly the same thing that Sean Strickland has done, which is beat Paulo Costa. And then on top of that, he beat Alex Skarov, a guy that wasn't defeated in the UFC and looking good. I think he deserves a chance, but I think Strickland's going to get the fight. And look, either way, they're going to be both good fights, so it's hard to complain. It's not like we're getting a lesser product here with Strickland, but in terms of merit, sporting merit, yeah, Whitaker should have been it.
Danny, what about the argument that Strickland took him to a split, whereas Whitaker got finished, and all within the last year?
Sure, but I mean, I think a lot of people watching that first fight with Whitaker, and I guess we would only know if they do rematch. A lot of people think that fight, the result of that fight, and no, I'm not trying to discredit Du Plessis, but a lot of people think Whitaker had an off night. A lot of people think that that fight wasn't indicative of what that fight should actually look like. And maybe maybe Du Plessis wins every time, but at least the way it went down, we do feel like knowing what we know of Robert Whitaker should be a more competitive fight than what it was that first time. So, yeah, fair point, but I'm still sticking with Whitaker here.
You agree, Matt?
No,
I mean, it sucks because DDP, just fought both of these guys, right? But I mean, obviously, when you look at the results, the split decision is the one you got to run back before the finish.
Mm-hmm. Goes, you were going to chime in?
yeah, I'd like to echo some of the sentiments that I've heard here. Look, I think sometimes when you have two guys that sort of both make sense, you can make a case for both of those guys. What tends to happen is the guy that plays ball best probably gets the shot, right? We don't know where this fight could end up. But the guy that ends up playing ball that says, "Okay, I'll do it," or the guy that says, "I want more money," or "I want this." Sometimes those are the guys that get kind of shafted. They kind of get put to the side. I think both guys make sense, but I feel like they have kind of laid the foundation for Sean Strickland, and it is tough that a lot of us look back and we see what happened in that fight for Bobby Knuckles. But I think that what he's done since then has helped us kind of erase that a little bit from our memory. Not totally, but a little bit, right? I mean, he seems like he has made adjustments in his game, even mentally. He's saying all the right things. So I think both of them. I just want to see both of them happen at some point. We'll see. But Dricus, like again, he gets the job done. these are two monsters that are waiting. I think it's going to be fun. This division is a division that doesn't get talked about that much with everything going on at like bantamweight and featherweight, but it is kind of quietly a lot of fun, guys.
Beastman in the chat says, as crazy as it sounds, Strickland's probably the best challenge for DDP, as he also has this too, along with the cardio. It's crazy, really, when you think about it. Young Barrymore says Goez is off his rocker. Um,
Go Wes.
Goez, yeah. Steve Williams says, agreed. I could see DDP as champ for a while. Cayman Rider says, I think DDP beats any other striking base fighter at middleweight right now. Play-Doh says DDP can probably defend until Kaio gets there. And Kaio Barajo has a big fight coming up this weekend against Jared Cannonier. That's a decent take right there. I'm going to use that name here in just a second. Not the Play-Doh name, the other ones. Goes, let's stick with you. Where does Adesanya go from here? Should he retire and maybe reconsider that or not? Like, he seems like he only wants to stick around if he can be a champ again. So along with where does he go from here, do you think he'll be a champ again?
Man, I mean, look, I think it all comes down to what he wants to be remembered for, right? He's a Hall of Famer. There's no way around that. If you want to be one of the greats, if that's the case, then I think you have to revamp your situation, maybe immerse yourself in grappling, right? The takedowns just came a little too easily. I think mentally he's getting to the place where he needs to be successful. But I wouldn't retire. I think there's still money to be made, but he does have to kind of address some of these deficiencies. Everybody in that division's tough. They've all caught up.
Okay. What do you think, Matt Wells? Do you think Izzy should retire? Has he done enough? Maybe reconsider his decision, because it does seem like at times it's the foot out, then the foot back in, and back and forth. What do you think?
February 9th, 2019, Anderson Silva passed the torch to Israel Adesanya. And it feels like we're kind of in the same space that Anderson was at the end of his UFC run, which means, yes, he's still a very high level athlete, but does he still have that championship fire? I don't believe so, because if you look back at his post-fight interviews after he lost to Jan Blachowicz, after he lost to Alex Pereira, it seemed like he was really pissed off, like that he knows he could get this win. He knows he can go out there and get the job done. Here, it was a very different mindset. He seemed very content with the result. He's very happy. Sure, he was happy that his teammates won, which is very cool. Obviously, you love to see that support for your fellow teammates that got the job done on the night. But for him personally, it didn't seem like he had that same fire that we heard before after losses. And, I'm not saying that he can't still go out there and beat high-level competition with that different mindset, but it just seems like he doesn't have that same desire to recapture the title anymore, which is fine, because, if he wants to go out there and have fun fights and just be entertaining, that's great too, because I think everybody will still love that from him. But to say that, man, I just didn't get that vibe that Izzy wants to be on top and rule this division anymore.
Mm-hmm. He's in a tough spot for sure. He needs Whitaker to win. That's the guy he owns 2 wins over, but he's lost to Strickland. He's lost to the last 2 champions, the current one, DDP, and the last one, Sean Strickland. Danny, how about UFC in Africa? They have an African champ in DDP, and then he's got an opponent that he can fight who fought well, guys. If you look at the judges' scorecards before the finish, 2 judges gave him round 1, 2 judges gave him round 3. Now, as confusing as that might seem, it's going to get even worse. Going into the 3rd round, 2 judges had it 29-28 for DDP. You just got to look at it. It's the way the judges turn in their cards. But my point is, he was winning rounds according to the judges. So does he need to be on the UFC card when they go to Africa? I'm talking about Israel Adesanya along with DDP.
It depends where they go, but yes, both are big representatives of the sport, and I think it all comes down to whether it's going to be a pay-per-view or not, right? If it's going to be a pay-per-view, UFC has made it a tradition that there kind of has to be a title fight on the line. So in that case, you would want DDP on there because he obviously has the belt. But if they were to go to a big fight night like they do sometimes with these Abu Dhabi cards, Adesanya could easily headline that as well. So I think either or. I think probably for Adesanya's bucket list, he would want that. I mean, as well as Dricus Du Plessis, but it seems that that's sort of weighed a little bit more on Adesanya, or at least he's been more vocal about it over the years. So yeah, I'd love to see it. And the time is now. Look, at some point we had 3 African champions, right? Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, and Adesanya. Now we only have one with Dricus Du Plessis. So I'm not saying, all of a sudden Du Plessis is going to lose his belt and there's not going to be any more African champions, but we know how quickly things can change in this sport. So if you really do have desires to go there, you best use what you got right now. So
Yes.
I hope that it's sooner rather than later. And yeah, I think either fighter can easily participate on the card.
It's gotta happen, guys. This is the one. This is the one of the three kings that needs to fight in Africa. No disrespect to the others. We know that Ngannou's now in Africa. Sorry, in the PFL, and he's serving as what is it? What is it called? Like the chairperson of PFL Africa and what the PFL wants to do. And then you have Kamaru Usman, who I don't want to say he's out of the title picture because now Leon Edwards is out of the way, and who knows, he might get in there against Bilal, but he does. He has lost 3 straight. I think Izzy's going to see this fight, watch it, and then there's going to be a fire in his belly. I think he's going to realize, hold on a second, I can compete with this guy. I just got to zig instead of zag, or vice versa. Here's the path. Tell me if you guys agree. Either give me a fist bump or give me that Frank Mir face. He needs to fight Kyle Barallo if Kyle Barallo beats Jared Cannonier. If he beats him and finishes him, I think he can get to DDP, and I'd love to see that fight in South Africa. I think the UFC would run it back again. If Cannonier wins, well, I don't know, maybe because he already fought Cannonier. We kind of already seen that matchup, but I think he needs to take out one of the top guns that's moving up, and I think Kyle Barallo might be his ticket. What do you guys think? Yeah, or this?
Yeah. Why not? I'm with
I'll
it.
give you a lazy fist bump.
Danny,
I'm
you
with it.
disagree?
I'm with the guys down here. I'm with them.
Okay, geez, not one of those fist bumps was good. Just Matt kind of even made it to the camera.
Yeah.
Like
I don't
you,
know.
it was a layup, but we felt you should have dunked. It was one of those fist bumps where you just kind of go, good job.
I need to see the results of this fight this weekend.
Yeah, we first have to see what happens.
I think Izzy's going to come back and he's going to see that he was doing well. He got finished. It's tough, and he was trying to be classy. And I don't know if they went overboard in your guys' opinion there with the bromance afterwards. They're exchanging jackets like soccer players exchange jerseys. I get it. It was cool, but I wanted them to save a little bit of that energy because I really felt like after that fight, I personally needed to see part 2. But I think everyone would like to see a part 2 on that continent, man. This is the fight that'll take us there.
Maybe they did go a little bit. I mean, obviously, you don't want to see them be enemies the rest of their lives. So it was good that they did embrace a little bit and have a little bit of a friendship. They might have gone a little bit overboard in the sense that if you want to sell a second fight, I mean, honestly, guys, what sold us on this first fight? It was the heat, right? That was a big component of this. Of course, they're great athletes and we want to see them fight, but the heat is what brought a lot of us to this card. That's going to go away now, right? Unless they just completely go heel on each other again and it restarts. But I don't. I think we've seen the peak of it getting as ugly as it's going to get. So maybe they did go a little bit overboard.
And here's another thing: if you really want to dig deep, I think Israel really enjoyed being the baby face. He got a lot of cheers. And in this fight, if he wants to pick it again, he would have to be the heel. And I don't know if he wants to go back to that because I think he really liked getting embraced. He got his respect from DDP. The crowd loved him. And, I think he realized life doesn't hinge on just wins and losses and titles. He's already a badass. He's already a Hall of Famer. But if there's going to be a few more fights out there, let's make it some good ones. What I did like was I think DDP or Israel said it, that in the back, I'm going to go to South Africa. I'd love to stop by and visit you, but make no mistake, if we fight again, I'm gonna try to kill you. I love that he said that. Maybe some might not. Obviously, I don't think they're seriously gonna do that. And DDP said, "And I'm gonna try and kill you." So it looks like maybe they can, collide again with that type of intensity. I love this fight. I loved it so much. The guys delivered, and you guys delivered. But we got to go to topic number 2.